I apologize, right on time, 5:30 and a half, so appreciate it. Wade, would you voice our prayer for us?
All right.
And I think, Bob, it's your turn for the Pledge of Allegiance. So,
I'll be happy to do it.
well, thank you, Bob. And if you wouldn't mind, Wade, we'd appreciate if you do that for us, sir.
Father, thank you for all the ones that's here and the decisions that will be made here tonight, Lord. Continue to bless all these ones and be with the ones that's out dealing with emergency issues right now. I know they're out on the response and heard their siren, so I want to continue to take care of them and bless them. Be with the council as they go through this time, making decisions that's best for the city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Will you join me in this with our flag? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wasn't at Sonic getting a drink. I had that before. I walked in, I thought, that's a little drink. Let's get started here. We'll go ahead and open up the regular meeting of the Clinton Hospital Authority, Clinton Recreational Authority, Clinton Solid Waste Authority, and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
Trustee Huebel?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. No action items. Do we have a city manager's report for any of these authorities?
Very quickly, I'll just let you know that our trash and our solid waste will run regular times tomorrow, so there will not be a disturbance in trash pickup.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the council related to this authority? Any questions or comments from the audience? That will be your opportunity in any of these authorities. If you have a specific question that relates back to these authorities, we'll have a general section under the city of Clinton here in a little while. Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn these particular authorities.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Huebel?
Yes.
Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. Moving on to the airport authority, we'll open that up. Go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
Trustee Huebel?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes, have an action item, consider resolution AA 1201, accepting the FAA grant, authorizing the chairman to execute the grant agreement upon receipt from the FAA. Steve, I know we've talked about this, but
Council, you opened the bids and we awarded that surplus rehab or reconstruction of the hangar aprons. This is for the grant for the FAA requires formal acceptance from the governing body, and this resolution basically states that you're accepting the grant and we'll move forward on the FAA approval and get this project going this summer.
any questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments related to this from anyone in the audience?
I got one question.
Okay.
Steve, would it upset you to pull that microphone a little closer? I'm a little bit hard of hearing, and I have a hard time hearing you.
How's that? A little better? I'll try to talk
That's
about
fine. Thank you very much.
Probably a good point. You always find out that the question I didn't ask was always the one 5 other people in the audience were wondering about too, so we appreciate you helping us out. Any other questions from the audience? Not seeing any, we'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution accepting the Aviation Administration grant, giving the chairman ability to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Huebel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. City manager's report for the airport authority.
Well, just simply that we'll get this to the FAA, and then we'll leave the final approval and to surplus to begin that project hopefully within the next 30 to 45 days.
Any questions or comments from the council related to this authority? Questions or comments from anyone in the audience related to this particular authority? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the airport authority.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Huebel?
Yes.
Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes.
on to the Industrial Authority. We'll go ahead and open it up and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So,
Second.
trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
Trustee Hudlin?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. One action item, it's a good one. Consider recommendation regarding construction of new fire station. I know we had all these in our packets. Steve, I'll let you give us an overview.
Well, council, you have the overview on the bids. What we'd like to do tonight is have you approve, allow us to award this to Mega Contractor out of Fort Worth, Texas, as a low bid. It is a good bid. Architects and staff have reviewed their bid, and they meet all the specifications. What we'll do now is, once you approve the low bid, we will go back. We already talking to you at this point already about some value engineering, dropping some things and some pricing and making it fit into our budget. We'll bring that budget and contract back to you at the next council meeting so we can move forward on the actual project. But this is the first step to award it to Mega, and then we'll begin that contract negotiation as we value engineer some things into our budget.
Questions or comments from council? Any questions or comments related to this from the staff, or from the audience? And/or staff, if the staff has questions. Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to accept the staff recommendation for the approval of the low bid from Mega Contractors.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Hudlin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. City Manager's report for the industrial.
Nothing further.
Okay. Any audience participation for the Industrial Authority? Questions? We'll move on to adjourn the Industrial Authority. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
Trustee Hudlin?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. Public Works Authority, we'll open that up. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
Trustee Hudlin?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. First action item, consider amendment to Southern Trent Environmental Services contract. Steve, I'll let you get
Oh,
started.
council, we talked about this, and we've been, myself and Ryan are working with Severn Trent, Jeremy, and Shane Jeffs, and David Gentry, and we've basically tried to simplify and baseline this contract that's better for the city, moving some chemical formulas, and we believe that we're at a point now we can move forward, and we appreciate Severn Trent's flexibility in this. And this will allow us to, rather than have a complex formula that changes and based on some of the operations, we'll have that in this. One thing, if there is a major scope change, we do have protection, and we can go back and revisit this contract with them if there's a major scope change, which could happen, as we know, due to our water situation.
Thank you, Steve. Questions or comments from council related to this?
What is that? Can you
Just
explain
a
that?
second, just a second. Hang on. Questions or comments from council? Okay, now,
What is that, chemicals you're talking about, or environmental contract, what exactly, or what, in simplified terms?
This particular contract basically is the contract that Severn Trent operates and manages our water facility and our wastewater facility, and certain chemicals are required to meet the DEQ standards for the quality of water as well as the wastewater. Rather than have Severn Trent purchase those chemicals, the city will purchase those chemicals, and that way there's no fluctuation in how we figure the contract price each and every year based on the chemicals used in the previous year. The city will purchase those chemicals to make it much more simplistic, and we'll simply just have a CPI, which is a consumer price index increase each year with their contract, rather than try to create.
Is that fluoride, chlorine?
Chlorine, other chemicals, yes.
Thank you, sir.
any other questions from the audience? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to address this contract. If you would, make it in a positive or in a negative when you make your motion.
I move to approve the amendments to the contract.
Second. Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Hudlin?
Yes.
Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. Consider PEC report on water alternatives. I know this is quite in-depth, but Steve, give us an overview.
Well, council, And we're not here tonight. I've got Nathan Edwards, Mike Kaiser, Alexi Kendrick, I got that name right, Alexi. We kind of give report to death, and I understand that, and that's not what this is about. We're in a, what I wanted to do is I thought there was gaps, and I was a little, and I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in our Garber report, and I wanted a second opinion. I wanted another view at this particular thing and find out, are we really going in the right direction with our water? We need a short-term water solution. We have a long-term water solution we need to implement. And I brought in PEC to do that, and they quickly came up and evaluated our report and our situation. And I'll introduce Nathan and Mike and Alexi to walk you through quickly, and I say quickly because I know we don't want to go through another hour and a half of reports, because they're going to work with us, basically the bottom line, they're going to work with us to find water, to get it engineered, to get it to Clinton, so we can get in our system, so we solve our long-term water issues, as well as our short-term water issues. So, with that said, Nathan, do you want to quickly
We're all going to come up
report?
We're all going to come up and do it together.
Okay.
That's all right.
Oh, that actually right there works. If you want to talk through that, we.
There's got to be a way.
It's,
Close it down.
Down.
Here to the right.
Oh, close that one, okay, that's where. That'll at least get us, okay.
Well, Mr. Hewitt said quickly, so we're going to do this in 2 hours or less.
I'm going to joke about it.
No, we understand that it's July 3rd, everybody's ready to go watch fireworks and do other things, but we appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Ethan Edwards. I'm in charge of our Oklahoma City and Tulsa offices for PEC. Mike Kaiser is a project manager in our water and wastewater division. Alexi Kendrick is a project engineer in the water and wastewater division.
Just do it.
Okay. As Mr. Hewitt said, we were given the opportunity to take a look at the report that was done by Garber. And as Mr. Hewitt expressed, he thought there were some gaps in that report. So we did this in about 2 weeks, quickly took a look at that report and assessed those recommendations. And we came up with some new ideas, with what we feel is a more comprehensive approach. So we wanted to share a little bit of that with you tonight. I know everybody's aware of your current situation. I don't need to rehash that a whole lot. But interestingly enough, on the way over here this afternoon, we stopped by Lane Western's office. I don't know if you know who Lane Western is, but they drill wells all over the nation. And they happen to have a report there from 1955 of your Burns Flat well field. And in the early to mid-50s, you guys were in the same situation you're in right now. You were in a major drought. You were looking at drilling wells at that time. So you're not the only community that's obviously facing these situations. You've been in it before. You probably won't be in it again, who knows. But we're dealing with some extreme weather patterns. And weather seems to be getting more extreme all over the nation. Is this the new norm? We don't know. But we do know what's happened in the past, and here we are again. So with that being said, one of the things that Mr. Hewitt charged us with is looking for a diverse portfolio of water. Okay? We know you have your phos allocation that you use. You use Clinton Lake to the capacity that you can when you have water. But we want Clinton to have enough water to last the next 50 to 100 years. That's where we're looking at this from 30,000 feet. We want you to have the water resources you need to sustain this community and to grow this community. So, we did have several options that we looked at, and some of them might seem a little crazy right now, but I assure you they're not crazy. We're just trying to build you a portfolio that's sound, that you can build on and sustain this community. So, that's probably 5 of our 10 minutes, but, I'll let Alexi run through a little bit about your system, and then we'll quickly move through this and get to what we need to do right now.
Okay, so we all know that the city of Clinton has currently 3 water sources. We have Clinton Lake, we have the Foss Reservoir, and we have the Burns Flat Well Field, which has not been used in about 40 years or so. We would like to supplement those sources with additional ones. We don't know what the conditions are going to be in the future, like Ethan said, so we don't know how Foss Reservoir is going to hold up in the long run. We don't know what type of yields we're going to get from the Burns Flat Well Fields. However, that is something we really think needs to be investigated by the city. And Clinton Lake, we know what has happened in the past, we know what's happening right now. So our goal here was to find other sources of water. You can do that one of 3 ways. You can do that by purchasing water, you can do that by getting surface water, or you can do that by getting groundwater. We looked at the possibility of purchasing water from another community. I don't know if there's any at this moment who would be willing to do that. We have to contact them, get some answers, but it is a possibility to purchase some water from them. We'd have to build a transmission line from that community to this one. But overall, that would be a good source, possibly in the shorter term, more immediate. So that's one option. Like I said, we also looked at surface water, which I know in Oklahoma seems a little crazy, but in the long run, we're not sure what's going to happen. So it might be a good idea to have some sort of water rights in a surface water source. We looked at 3 additional ones, and the Altus Reservoir is the largest. It has the largest drainage area and has the greatest chance of recovery in the future. So that is the one we pretty much focused on in our report. But there are others available. So you see in the chart. And then there are 2 aquifers nearby to Clinton. There's the Elk City Aquifer, which you guys know about. That's what the Burns Flat Well Field sits on. And the Rush Springs Aquifer, which is in eastern Custer County. They both have pretty good water quality, and they do have some water rights available.
Is that where Weatherford gets all their water for this Rush Spring?
Weatherford's well field is on the Rush Springs Aquifer. Okay, so we looked at a few different alternatives. The first one being getting surface water to Clinton Lake and then treating it through your water treatment plant. That could come, we looked at the Altus Reservoir, again, because it has the greatest area, drainage basin, all of the above. Second alternative would be to obtain water rights and construct a well field in the Rush Springs Aquifer. That is also a possibility to get additional water source. Again, we talked to a hydrogeologist. The sweet spot, as he said, of the Rush Springs Aquifer is in eastern Custer County, so it's not an extreme distance from here. Or we also looked at the possibility of using both groundwater and surface water. And this would be very long-term. It'd be a phased construction if we decided to go this route. That you would have both Clinton Lake, Foss Reservoir, the well field in Elk City, a well field in Rush Springs, and then a potential secondary surface water source in case there was ever a time of drought. So that would give you the greatest diversity of water sources.
Back or forward?
Oh, that's fine. Now, I have included some cost estimates. These cost estimates are very conservative. They are worst case scenario. The farthest distance you're gonna have to go in an aquifer, the farthest distance you're gonna have to go to a surface water source. The most wells you will likely need to drill, so on and so forth. So, one thing that I really wanna point out is the costs look pretty high at this point in time, but they would be over a long period of time. They would be phased out. So like for phase 1 right now, you spend the money, go look at the Elk City well field. Go look at what you already have. So many years down the line, then maybe we'll go to the Rush Springs. maybe somebody or someone will maybe look at the surface water. It's just all there, and if we obtain water rights now, it's all there in the future in case it's needed. And that's something that we feel is very important for the city.
You get the water rights from the state? Is that where the water rights come from?
landowners have the water.
The landowners, yeah.
Lakeville, what about?
That comes from OWRD, the Oklahoma Water Resources Board.
Surface water.
That's right.
Yes.
For groundwater, that's correct.
And we really want to implement a plan so the city has water and does not need to go through these types of drought conditions in the future. So there's basically going to be no worries. And like Ethan said, we want to plan 50 to 100 years in advance. We do not want this to be a future problem.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Because I know we've talked about this, but the future of FOSS, some have said that just expanding that would be something that we should do. What do you guys feel like? Is that a feasible option to put all our eggs in FOSS?
I'd like to speak to that. Foss Reservoir, as you know, it's below normal levels, operating levels right now, okay? You've seen what it's done to the community to look at one or two options. You need to broaden your horizons, you need to look at other things. Some other things about Foss, the distribution system that brings water from Foss to Clinton and to other communities, the condition of that is fragile in certain areas. That they have line breaks, they have had line breaks in the past. They lost power a few days ago, and you were out, you used a couple 100,000 gallons of water in an hour. And then you've got the condition of the water plant itself. So there's a host of things that could be problematic that, for instance, when the power went out, you didn't have water, and that's your only resource, then you could have some issues.
But aren't they looking to expand their plant and do some, upgrade it also? Or do you?
Mr. Here may be able to speak
I mean,
about.
yes, I mean, they are. I mean, but I think, and I just said that knowing the answer, but is that we have to have a large portfolio. I think we're using some common sense here. We're looking at water close to Clinton Lake to supplement Clinton Lake. We have to. We need some water now. I think what they're bringing to us is also some options for the future. And I think by no means are we going to go spend $28 million tomorrow on some. We have to be very cautious and careful, but we do need to have a large scope. Listen, I want these guys to be our engineer to help us provide the engineering to get the water from where we find it, once we find it. But as they say, we've got to have some options, maybe look at water rights, and look at some other areas.
Let me address the point here. I think, I'm sure the city participated in the Oklahoma comprehensive water plan completed a couple of years ago. If you didn't, you should have. Nevertheless, there's some regulations that are going through the House right now which says how much water we use this year, you can't extend that and grow any for 2050. They're also saying that we aren't going to have the state overseeing this, we're going to have a basin allocation of water. My point is, it's in a flux right now. We don't know what Oklahoma City is going to do. The reason to get allocations out of a reservoir, and maybe you don't like the one we pick, go get it. Because it's going to change and it's going to become politically motivated how you get future water rights, or water allocation. In our country, Oologah. Tulsa's got it all taken up, and there's about 4 towns on a pecking order out of that trying to get water if they don't want it. So just because you get a water allocation doesn't mean you're building a structure to it that protects you. So you do need a surface water source. You need allocations for different sources. We keep going back to the portfolio. It's been obvious that the well field was built because Clinton Lake couldn't supply you. The well field, when you built Foss, you kind of mothballed, I'm guessing, the well field. I don't know why it was mothballed, but it was. So therefore, now we're going back to what the people in the 50s suggested to do, which is right on, was diversify. And that's what we're suggesting, okay? The other thing I want to point out, and I pointed this out to Ms. Jewett, the average water consumption per person in the United States is 65 gallons per capita per person per day. We as engineers like to use around 100 to 125. When we looked at the Garber report, they had a much higher figure for that. We subdivided out the industrial side and the commercial side from the residential side. Once we did that, your water usage per person per capita per person per day is 155. You're high. very hot. That's the first thing I told Steve.
In this climate,
Yeah,
that makes a huge
huge
difference.
difference. So you're seeing the mayor of Tulsa went on TV last week and said, we're at 90%, we get 94, we're at voluntary, we get 90% capacity. We're at mandatory. Broken Arrow was on it this week. This is in a water-rich part of the state. You aren't alone. So we need to change some mindsets and realize where you are with this. If you cut your water consumption 25%, that's a huge difference in what you need for water allocation going forward. And it's been proven across the nation. What a lot of people don't realize in the Safe Drinking Water Act, there are regulations that the federal government can say, guess what? You got to start controlling how much water you got. They've never done that, but they've never seen an extended drought before. And whether we are or not in an extended drought, we're in a drought. Nobody knows how long it's going to last. So we need to start a very aggressive conservation program here immediately. We're sliding. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, yeah, so we go back to what we said, the immediate is the well field that you've already got some rights in. Let's go explore that. We gave Steve some ideas, some people to talk to. We ought to do that immediately. Let's see if the line has integrity to bring water to town. Let's get that out of the way. If it does, great. If it doesn't, that's another step we've got to go over. Let's see how many wells we've got.
Before we,
Water conservation.
before we move on, and I know we're trying to run through this, but
Yes,
the Birds Flat field,
yes, sir.
and realizing what kind of expense are we talking about to review that? Is that something to be done in short order? Is that something that takes some time? Give us just a short dissertation on what that means when you say to explore that well field.
I don't know right now how many wells are operational. Okay? I would like to have somebody like Lane Western come out and at least video and take a look at one of the casings and see what's in it.
Yeah, and we think there's issues with those, but they're the only ones somewhat operating.
Right.
Or it could be issues with your transmission line from the well
Could be,
field.
could be. And we need, you're right, though, we need some.
With water rights there, though, can we go back in and re-drill wells?
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about,
Absolutely.
basically,
But
is
if
going
you-
into that field, reestablishing new wells if the old wells don't work, check out the transmission line, and that's the low-hanging fruit in the synopsis we're
Correct.
talking
Yeah,
about.
that's, yes, sir, that's
Yes.
immediate.
That's immediate.
You have the water rights there, let's use them. Whether we
Now-
rehabilitate those existing wells or we remove them.
We have the 1955 study, we made copies, we're leaving them with Steve. You can read that they actually explored the capacity of those wells in 55, and they did some chemistry on it. So you can understand that those wells are about 100 to 150 gallons a minute well. That's what that aquifer is gonna produce, based on what they did back then. Obviously, we ought to verify that. Well, that suggests you can do the math. If you're gonna do 2 or 3 million gallons a day from that well field, that's a lot of wells. We don't know that yet. That's the one thing we need to find, is the quality of water, because it was on an airbase.
Right.
And no question of what the airbase may have done.
No, not all
It's
locations.
not all of them are on the
Not all.
airbase, yeah.
Well,
it's-
have we actually on the property where the well, there's 240 acres of land, the city owns the property?
Well, we need to check the water chemistry, just because, yeah, no question, we need to do that. Check the line.
Yeah, on those are, that's a good water application. There's just not any water coming out that can be sent to Clinton Lake at this point. We're getting garden hose with the water.
Right.
And that's one of the things we want to stress is if that transmission line ends up being something that's,
It's brand
It's an
new,
issue.
I mean, it's not 4 years old.
no, I'm talking about the line from the well field to
The line from the well field is about 4 years old.
Oh, is it? Okay.
There's 6. Corps of Engineers rebuilt that.
That's, you guys have done what I wanted. I just wanted some, because I'm following along here, and I'll make sure I understand the concept, so
Okay.
if you guys want to move on, you know.
I want to say one more
I
thing
have
about
one
the
question.
Okay.
I'd like to see, you provided us a lot of statistics, but I would like to see a map of the Rush Springs aquifer. You say it's in Blaine, Caddo, Comanche, Custer, Dewey, Grady, and Washita County. I'd like to see a map of it in Custer and Washita County. And people with wells, irrigation wells, have to file a report with water resources
data that we've seen is roughly 500 to 600 gallons a minute from the wells.
Well, I'd like to look at it.
No, sure, I understand that, that's what, I guess that's the point of, if you're gonna get 100, 125 gallons a minute out of your, yeah, you're up, your burn slide or up city, but you can get 500 to 600 gallons a minute from another source. It's definitely something we gotta take a look at. So, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, I wanna finish this little talk about conservation, so we can wrap this up.
I think we've talked to Steve a lot about where the goal is to get to a maximum daily demand, and I think from what we heard, you guys are reaching that. We've provided him some other communities' conservation programs for him to review. And we're, as part of your staff, we're ready to answer any questions that help in that regard to go with water conservation. And I think we ought to engage your large industrial users in any discussion that we have, because this is paramount to their future too. They should not be kept in the dark. They should be involved in this discussion as we go forward, so we know exactly what their long-term plans are, so we can make sure that we've got enough water for them. That's critical of what we do. And I think you could pretty well read the water from irrigation wells and portable water quality should be used for point of use treatment. If there are some people, are there some industries that could do what's called point of use treatment? Take local wells close to them and treat it themselves and use it. That's an option, and maybe we give them some rebates. Just a concept, okay? If we beat water costs gas. Okay, there's the question on, we talked about that. Yeah, the diverse water supply. Does anybody have any questions on our thoughts on diversifying your water sources?
And just to tie together what we've heard before, Rush Springs well field, high output, low quality.
Yes.
Is that always the case, or is that just a generalization that Mayor?
That's a generalization.
Okay.
We've talked to, I've spoken to a hydrogeologist, and there are what they call sweet spots. that
Okay.
have
What?
Better output and better water quality, and
One of those sweet spots is actually located in Custer County.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
That's where having the map is exactly what it
Yes.
is.
the hydrogeologist can help us out with that.
That's
Yes.
right.
I'd like to see it on the Rush Springs and the Oak City.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And Don, they've just been here for a month, but they've already been providing, that's exactly what we're gonna bring them. Continue that to find out where that water's at. And let's go do those test wells. Let's go begin to work and get that water to Clinton Lake. We can blend it on the east side. We can do different things if the water quality is good. So this is a quick report to give you tonight, but to basically let you know, we're moving forward, not stopping. We're gonna meet our short-term goals and get some water, working right now to try to, supplement Clinton Lake. And also a long-term goal to meet the demand future, because one of the things we want to make sure, like he Mike made a great point, our commercial industry is very important to us. Jobs are very important to us. We want to grow as a community, so we want to make sure we've got the water for the future.
Right. Let's not stop what we saw in the short term. Let's keep going, let's be vigilant with this effort, and let's make sure that we can sustain this community for 50 to 100 years.
I would say thank you. I know you guys are building on what they did already, but I was also disappointed in Garber, and I feel like there's some things here we can chew on, and the council can work with you guys, with Steve, to implement some answers to the problems we've got.
Don't get scared. Don't look at the numbers and get scared about that. This is over many, many years. This is not something we're going to go out and spend $10 million next year. It's a phased approach. It's going to take some time to do. We need to fix your problems right now. We're here to do that, okay? And then we'll work on expanding that and building a portfolio for the future. That's our goal.
I mean, council, I'll be honest with you, we want to take a common sense approach to this problem. And we're an engineer that listens to the city, and understands what we're trying to accomplish, and understands, we've got a lot of people that know the area, that have seen the history, and work with what we already know, and not reinvent the wheel, but try to find some answers here, and we're going to do that. So I appreciate them coming tonight, give you a quick update, but they're going to continue to help me engineer where we find the water and get that to Clinton Lake or to our system, wherever it may be.
What kind of a time frame would we be looking at as far as the investigation of the well fields burns flat roads? I mean, duration-wise, would it take 30 days, 45 days to do this exploratory type of work that you're talking about?
It's immediate, but I hate to say it's gonna be 30 days. There's some things we kicked around with Steve earlier about testing out the transmission line that we may be able to do, because that is a concern that I got. I mean, you answered it's new, it's new, and so, you know, and now it's just taking a look at the wells individually. And that, you know, you're probably talking a month to take a look at 2 or 3 of the good wells, is what I'm guessing, and checking out the motors, the pumps, the well
And we
screens.
can do that in concert with talking to the hydrogeologist
Yes.
and having looking at that aquifer. That can all be done at the same time.
I would also suggest that if you think we're on the right path, that you guys start down a program to start looking at water right allocations, find out the cost in the reservoirs. And we may want to start looking, going east. And just, don't have to do anything right now, but just start looking and getting a program done of where that sweet spot is, and maybe doing a test well. Because I'd like to know if we got nitrates or arsenic over there.
In the Rush Springs,
Yes,
on the eastern side?
I think eventually we're gonna be there. Eventually, we're gonna be there, just a matter of when. And why not start looking now and find out? So therefore, we've got all the information together, and we can make some hard decisions.
Or make the hard decision.
Anything else, Steve?
No, I think they did it all. I mean, obviously, we're going to go through it quickly. You saw the report. It's ongoing. It's a living, ongoing issue we're dealing with. We obviously have an engineer on board that can handle this, and so I feel confident we're going to continue to do that, so.
Steve, I have one more question. Just to clarify, the water that is currently being produced out of those 4 wells, it's like water out of garden hose, but it is treatable water.
Yeah, when I talked to, Arnold, it was, quality wasn't necessarily an issue. It was simply, those wells were not producing much.
Volume wasn't.
So, and not that they're not probably water at that location, which we don't know, but we can find out. But we've got the rights, that's the main thing. We've got water rights in the area, we can begin to continue to look at that and see if we can get water.
Mr. Vick, did you do anything to those wells? What did you have to do in order to get them turned on?
Jeremy, you recall we may have done those?
Basically, all they had to do was turn the power on. There was one pump that was fully functional already, but when they turned it on, I mean, it wouldn't even pressure up. It was making less than a gallon a minute.
So it could be an issue with the pump.
Yeah, there could be.
Right. I mean, how long has it been since that well been operational? Decades?
I don't know for sure. They ran it for about 3 or 4 days about a month ago.
So we have to take a look at that to see if it's an equipment issue or if it's actually the well.
And even if it is the well, it may be the well bore that needs to be redrilled. So it's just several options.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It could be any of the above.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions from council? Questions from the audience? You guys have anything?
How many wells do we have out at Burns Flat right now? There's
More.
4 that are somewhat off.
4.
I think, now, it's changed hands a few times, so some of the rights are a little fuzzy, but there is approximately 20 wells out there that I believe Clinton has some rights to some
Actually,
degree.
Clinton gave up, former city manager gave up those rights, the water rights, about 10 years ago. We only have the rights, the water rights under the 240 acres of land that we own.
Oh, I see.
Is this the only time we're talking about water in this meeting?
No.
We'll have an opportunity to get some questions specifically. We'll have an open session at the end that we can address any questions you have related to water.
Okay, I think it's very good to diversify, and conservation needs to be stressed more. We can't just drill, baby, drill. We have to think of 7 generations ahead, and we can really conserve more water. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing. I look back at the 50s, and I think they got the calling card we got, and then I know it rained and it rained and it rained, and the only thing I've ever known is what's happened in the last 50 years. And so when I saw the hydrograph from the 50s back, scares you to death. I mean, just realize this has happened before, this is not new, and I know that probably sounds stupid, but we're in a situation where I agree with you, we should do something now so that 50 years from now, we don't have this same wake-up call, and it may be that this continues, so it's something, I appreciate the effort you guys put in. Any other questions from anyone in the audience for?
I was just gonna say, I know Don was asking about the maps. I know the Oklahoma Water Resource Board, because I've looked at it before, Oklahoma Water Resource Board has a map and it shows the Rush Springs aquifer. I don't know how updated that is, but it's something you can look at tomorrow easily on the computer.
Yeah, they have it on the website, but I will also
I'd like
personally
to see
call them and try to get close up.
what the volume of the wells.
Right. That shows what aquifers and alluvials are in the area.
Any other questions from the audience? This particular issue?
Where is the one sweet spot?
It's in Custer County, it's
The hydrogeologist that we spoke with believes that the sweet spot is in eastern Custer County, so I believe it would be east of the city of Weatherford, over far east or yes of the county. It wasn't extremely explicit as to the best location, because again, we have to run test wells to determine that, but there is really good water quality in comparison to other areas.
And good output.
And good output in east of Weatherford.
Any other questions? If not, we appreciate y'all being here. Thank you for the answers to these questions.
No, we'll be in contact. We'll continue this effort. You know, we're working on this. We don't stop. It's every day. Every day's a high, of course. And so we'll continue. Oh, okay. They might hear finally.
I'll call you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Council, I'll just let you know, this is, again, they're here to help, and we have to have an engineer, and, you know, they're playing catch-up quickly. We're gonna go do that as much as we can. We're gonna solve this problem, and it's, you know, I think to have a very diverse portfolio is important. I've been saying that from day one, and I think, we'll do that. I apologize that, you know, we didn't get quite the information we wanted to get in the time frame it took so long to get from our last report, but we're gonna move forward from that and figure out a way to get this community water for long term.
Anything else, Steve?
That's it.
Okay. We'll move on to the next action item, and affirm expenditures by the Clinton Public Schools Board of Education, the Jody Hall General Contractor for school construction. How are we coming along? Are we close to the end on this, or is this just a
Yeah, Brian,
We saw $48,000
48?
left after this, yeah.
You guys drive careful.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you being here. Is this the last 48, or is this
That's
just?
the last 48,000 left to spend. After this payment, there's still 48,000.
Okay.
They're
This is
spending.
5,600.
Okay, that's, I saw
Yeah,
the
this is a
balance
small
in there.
amount.
564186. Any questions? We've had an ongoing with this, approving these as a concession flow through. Any questions from council? Questions from anyone in the audience? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this expenditure by Clinton Public Schools Board of Education.
I so move.
Second.
Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Hewland?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. City Manager's report for the Public Works Authority.
Just to let you know, I started interviewing some public works directors potential. We'll continue that effort to try to find somebody to replace Mr. Adams. Once I find somebody, I'll introduce them to you. And they have a large, right now I'm trying to do that and everything else, but we'll find somebody. So just so you know, we're not gonna, the ship's not gonna stop sailing. We're still moving forward on everyday items.
Any questions for the City Manager under this particular authority from the council? Any audience participation under the Public Works Authority? This is a general opportunity under the PWA. If you have a question related to PWA, we'll have also a general under the City of Clinton at a later time also. Not seeing any, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of the Public Works Authority.
Second.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Marcy?
Yes.
Trustee Rhoda?
Yes.
Trustee Huber?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes, moving on to the Clinton, regular meeting of the Clinton City Council, we'll open it up and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Councilman Marcy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Rhoda?
Yes.
Councilman Huber?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes. Have one action item for important request implementation of mandatory conservation for landscape irrigation referencing ordinance 935. And Steve is overview on this.
Council, we'd ask you to consider a much more strict policy regarding water usage for recreational and landscape needs. This would allow 2 hours a week for watering in the irrigation sprinkler systems. However, you could hand water daily in the evenings, but all watering would be after 8 p.m., between 8 p.m. and midnight. That allows our tower after midnight to replenish itself from usage. We are seeing high usage due to the heat, and we do not want to affect our business and industries. So we would ask that you consider this as a restriction. We will, if so passed tonight, we will be working with the community on education. We're not going to go start writing tickets tomorrow, but we are going to try to really get people to think about conservation and get them to abide by these new potential rules in watering during our drought.
How about get the word out to?
We'll get it out in many ways. We'll get it out, obviously the media. We can also, our staff, we will send out in our water bills, we'll send information. We're going to get it out in every way you can think of. We're going to try to get to our residents and try to inform them.
I have one thought. You know, on the 2 hours, I was thinking maybe we do 1 hour a day, 2 days a week, like Tuesday and Thursday each, Monday and Wednesday odd. What you thought there?
Staff doesn't have an issue with that. It's just,
So that way, in other words, where we have it set up right now, you only water 1 day a week. And if we water 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday, might be a little more palatable.
Would that be better for landscape irrigation? It makes sense that water 2 days a week.
but basically, your yard needs just a certain amount of water. So it's, you do it 2 days or 1 day, I think it's not really going to affect it. So 2 days won't hurt it. I mean, I think that this is very aggressive, and I appreciate the council considering it, but I don't think it matters if it's 2 days. Most people plug it in their system and go. Some hand water, sprinklers, but either way, it doesn't matter.
Well, are you watered? Would you rather have it 1 hour every other day or 2 hours one day?
2 hours, in my opinion, is 2 hours. I mean, whether it's 1 day or 2, as far as I'm concerned.
What now?
I don't feel like it makes that much difference personally. I'd like to have a little more, 2 hours. I mean, we're all gonna have to conserve. We're in a desperate situation. We're approaching it. And, it doesn't feel good, but that's where we are.
Well, it's kind of like this, I think. Steve had made the comment that prior to May 1st, we were staying within our allocation of 2.1 million gallons a day. Explain when that.
Well, basically, when we saw temperatures rise in the high 90s, we saw a quick spike, and it has not dropped much below that. Now, last week was really high, we had about 105 degrees, but now, right now, we're around 1,600 gallons a minute from Foss, and we're 300 gallons, and Clinton Lake is on the line, so about 300 gallons a minute from Clinton Lake, so that puts us at 2.5, so, we saw one day where we had the outage last Monday, we had averages, we were gonna be nearly 4 million gallons, so we were real nervous about that, so we cannot have those type of days. We can implement this, we can evaluate the usage. If we get some potential moisture we can pull back on this, or we can go back to voluntary, but I think we need to be aggressive and really consider something that's mandatory right now.
One last thing before we open it up for public, outdoor irrigation and landscaping with hose sprinklers, 2 hours once a week. And you're basically looking at businesses and residences with even, odd. So essentially, it's just a system whereby some will water Tuesday, some will water Thursday. Was there any thought process to what days, or is it just a matter of picking a couple?
Our higher usage is in the middle of the week.
Okay.
Weekends don't have the issue. Correct, Jeremy? That's where they drop off.
I have one question as well.
And then one last thing, outdoor irrigation. If I've got a water hose and I need to water my plants,
That's different. That falls underneath the hand water. You can
Okay.
hand water every day or use drip irrigation or soaker hoses, but that again, that's from 8 p.m. to midnight.
you got 2 hours per
With
day.
open-ended, large irrigation,
Right.
that's for large areas. That's the issue we're trying to.
So basically, there's the differential between open-ended hosing, sprinkler systems, they have a restriction, and then if you're out watering, you have another standard.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, water hose. So I can go outside 2 hours allowed every day of the week, and I can water between 8 and 12 by hand, or if necessary, if I had.
How does this pertain to citizens who live outside the community that are currently on city water?
Well, I mean, obviously, they don't fall under our ordinances, but I think we can implement this based on if you're going to buy water from us, you're gonna follow or you're gonna see a potential cutoffs. I think we can do some force in there, in my opinion.
I think that you probably ought to visit with the people that are outside the community that aren't regulated by the city ordinances.
Yeah,
And
somebody-
bring it to their attention as
Oh,
well. That
absolutely.
just because you're outside the city limits, you're still consuming water that.
And I think this is what, the point Steve made, I realize we've got immediate ability to work with our citizens, and then everything else, we're gonna have to see, how it goes, where we go. And I don't think anything's off the table as far as that, but if this gets us to the bulk of our users, I don't like it any better than anybody else, but we're kind of at a point that we need some restrictions that allow us to continue on. And I know there are a lot of things out there, people, that's, I was showering in a hotel somewhere, and I was in Corpus Christi, and they've got that little thing, so it shoots out like a little stream because they are restricting your water flow, and they do it in all the hotels, and so there are things we can do as citizens. I remember there was a movie, The Fockers, was that what it was? I seem to live in movies, but if it's brown, flush it down. If it's yellow, let it mellow. That came from the movie. But I think we're at a point where I grew up in a generation where you didn't worry about it. You stood in the shower as long as you wanted to. Unfortunately, with the drought we've got, the situation's a little different. So it's a different point. Any other council comment or any other movies we can bring up? Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience?
We might have to go back to the other days, one shower a week.
LR, I'll start with you in the back there.
Okay, thank you. I just wonder, I know we have to take care of our commercial businesses. Do we have any idea how much water Bar S uses? And while we're talking about them, they have a terrible odor. It's awful for those people on the east side of town.
I agree.
Is there anything that can be done there?
Well, I'll talk about the usage. I can tell you that Bar S is doing their part regarding, they're implementing some systems that's reducing the water they use. So they are trying to do their part. As for the odor, I don't have an answer today on the odor, so we'll try to work with them on that. But As for water, I think they are doing their part. I think everybody's very aware. We've been working and talking to them about our concern. Obviously, we do care about our business and industry, a lot of jobs that affect our community. So that's one of the reasons why we're asking for the landscaping to cut back a little bit during this hot period.
I'd also like to make the comment off the record that we've grown since 1950. Let me back up. I have to think these engineers are using the swag system somewhat on their estimates. They're showing that we're going to grow by 20,000, or have a population of 20,000 people in the next 10 years. I think we have 8 more bodies today than we had in 1950. So I think that's a sophisticated guess.
Well, that wasn't 10 years, or that was 50 years.
Was it 50?
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking at 50, then we've only grown by very few people this past year.
And I think what we as a council, speaking to what you're saying, what we as a council have to do is we have to interpret where we think we'll be, what the outlay, I mean, I don't know that Clinton has $28 million to throw at a project. I mean, it's, there's gonna be a reality over the long haul. That may be something that Clinton can do in a 50-year period, but we're gonna have to take and piecemeal what they give us down to where we think we need to go and get that vision. But I think what we can't do is evidently what they did in the 50s, and I'm not picking on the 50s. I've said many times, we stand on the shoulders of the people who went before us. Foss is there, that was one of the things they did. So, but I think we have to look at what can we implement, what can we plan for, and how can we move forward.
I think it's very wise that you're looking at the situation we're faced with, and it's not a dilemma yet, but it could be. And thank goodness you're aware of the situation and you're taking action. I think that's a smart move.
Well, and hopefully what we look at, water will never be as cheap as it was 3 years ago. I mean, that's just a reality. Whether we buy it from Foss, what we have to do to bring more water online, the ability to turn the faucet on and enjoy clean, drinkable water is going to cost us more. And I think I'd like to say that's just the world, and I think it is. But in Clinton, that's what we're faced with. And so appreciate the comments, LR. The odor, we have talked to them in the past. We continue to try to work with them. I know they have some systems that they try to tweak, and it seems to get better, and then we go back. So we'll continue to reinitiate that discussion. Yes, ma'am.
On the bars, I agree. Do they have any pollution controls at all? Is anyone monitoring how much water?
We've talked to the DEQ numerous times over the last 8 years.
Is
And
there anyone monitoring it?
Realizing Bar S is a very important employer in Clinton, Oklahoma. But we've talked to DEQ, they have addressed that smell several times. It's not an issue as far as health. And we've dealt with the DEQ, I can probably count at least 5 times over that period where we've specifically asked for them to come and take a look at the smell problem. So.
Is there anyone monitoring them?
DEQ does regular monitoring on industry like that.
Yeah, and they have restrictions. I think what we're doing is we're bringing DEQ out on a specific basis. We have a smell problem. And as you know, if that smell comes and goes, after living here for 20-some years, I can tell you pretty much when I know when the humidity's high, that smell is there. And
because where they drain, my dogs swim in it, and he smells like hot dogs every time he's wet, and that was years ago. So I kind of wonder. I agree that our jobs are very important, but if there's no water, then everyone will have to move away. Sometimes we're in the IT society inside. We don't realize that water is, basis of life. So I think it's really encouraging that you are thinking about conserving. But have you, I'm sure you have, I want to be reassured, you assess where the most water is being used and try try to limit that, try to, like, in businesses and farms, and so, I don't know, is that where most of the water is
Steve
being
is,
used?
we've gone through it, Steve's broke it down where it's being used, and I would assure you, one of our biggest problems is keeping our grass green. That is
Okay,
where we
then
s- Where we see the use, when you go back to the months during the winter, and then you come into the summer, the explosion is people turning water sprinklers on, be they in-ground systems or outside systems, and that's just a reality of what's going on.
Thank you for explaining that. I do want to point out in Santa Fe, where they have native grasses and stuff, they have 10-foot roots. They don't need to be watered. If, along with your things to conserve water with, the bills is encourage native plants, and that will help us not use that green stuff, Roundup all over. That is a toxic chemical that causes cancer, and everything runs into our water that we drink. So that would be really, really good for that. And will all these conservation things be enough?
I think they are. You have to-
Limit the water
I think
landscape.
What LR said, we're not at the end of the world, we have enough water. The problem is the way we use our water and trying to step over the side and reanalyze where our water comes from. Clinton Lake right now has been unreliable. If we don't get rain between now and the end of the summer, we'll have another problem with Clinton Lake, it won't be online. So we have water. I think it's an analysis of where we go to obtain more water. We have some options, but as far as, I think what LR said is a perfect example. It's not the end of things. We have water. It's just we have to make sure we regulate how the public uses the water and make sure we use it
I
for
agree, thank you.
the best,
I concur.
what is it they say all the time, the best use. You know, I don't think this is going to change. We are all learning. I'm 52. I'm smarter today when it comes to water than I was for sure 30 years ago. And I don't think this is not going to go away. This is America today. And
I agree.
the education you're talking about, I think that's something Steve has mentioned as far as trying to work with people to change the way we put things in our yard. That's going to be an educational basis going forward.
And what we plant in our garden and lawns, I think needs to be promoted also. Places
think
where
there's a lot
they can buy native plants and stuff.
There's a lot of educational things. I know if you go north, you can talk to Mr. Bieber, and he's an outstanding source of information of what plants don't use as much water. We have one of the best sources just north of Clinton at the Sunshine Nursery. Thank you, sir. I mean, he's amazing. We're blessed. So we can encourage that as we go. I think it's a learning process.
And native plants increase biodiversity like bees and so forth that are very good for us. They're herbs. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions from anyone in the audience related to this particular topic we have before us?
I think that 2 hours once a week would be better. You will find if you're reading articles on lawns that a 2-hour sprinkler system will give you enough water to keep your yard green for the summer. Instead of 1 hour this today and 3 days later another hour. 2 hours at one time does more good than 2 1-hours.
I know it's easier from a monitoring standpoint, it's easier to see if someone has their water on for that particular day and it's not on for another 6 days or something.
I've been watering mine once a week since I've had to start watering, and it's fine.
Well, and I know a point Steve brought up that I thought was interesting, and it's education. Once again, you can train your lawns. If your lawn's used to being soaked every day, so I thought that was very interesting. You can train your lawn to be used to less rain, less.
I'm training mine not to have any.
Well, and I appreciate the fact, I know people have plants, and the hand watering, I think that gives you the flexibility. If you're gonna be out there, you can hand water.
I've been doing hand watering for mine last 2 summers. if I put the sprinkler on it, it runs under the fence, and I don't like that. But I will get mad if the lady across the street runs her water for 4 hours and it runs down Modell all those 4 hours. I'm gonna bitch. Big time.
Yeah, and I've seen that, I 2 days ago. I mean, it's just one of those things that we're all gonna have to learn. So at least at this point, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow on getting some of this down. When you get as old as I am, you kind of slide down the hill. But I want to get this clarified on the hand watering. You say you can do that every day, but it's from 8 p.m. at night. Like if you want to hand water your bushes with a little hand sprinkler. I mean, hold the hose in your hand. Is that what you're talking
8
about?
to 12, 2 hours a day. In other words, you can do that between 8 and 12, but you're limited to 2 hours a day. You could stand out there for 2
The
hours.
sprinkler system, I understand.
Yes, sir.
But I didn't get that clarified.
Good question.
He's gonna come online late August, we're gonna work with him on it, we feel that it's not gonna affect us too much, we'll strategically work with him on that, when he feels that.
One thing that'll make it easier if it's mandatory is I've had some neighbors that they don't take the paper, they don't listen to the radio, and so I don't know how they get the word. He was out the other day, water in the middle of 102 degrees, and his next door, 2 doors down, was washing his pickup, and his little 3-year-old was out with the hose in the street, water in the street. Well, you know, when it's not mandatory, I didn't feel like I could say a whole lot without upsetting, but now I can go down and say, did you know there's mandatory, and you could get a ticket? I'm just trying to, I think we can, each one of us can do our share maybe to help in that regard a little bit, to people that you see, that now I can say something to them without feeling, you know, that I'm stepping
I
on
know
your
who
feet.
you're talking about.
Do you?
There's a lot of people that are obnoxious as neighbors.
2 hour, I think, you know, knowing now that they're using more in the middle of the week, I think doing the 2 days a week is going to be better for us. Otherwise, we're looking at 4 days a week, and I'm afraid we would end up using more water over 4 days than we would use 2 days. But that's just, so I think we'd like to do it.
Any other questions from anyone in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
It kind of concerns me, the 8 to midnight hand watering. I think there are people maybe living alone and in situations they might not want to be out watering later at night. Could that be maybe buffered a little closer to like 7 to 11 or something where there's more daylight hours involved with it?
We give them a morning time.
Yeah.
You can do, I mean, we can really adjust it any way we want. I mean, I don't, one of the issues why it's 8 p.m. is because we see a tremendous spike from 5 p.m. to 8, because everybody goes home, and everybody turns on washing machines and sprinklers, and kids play outside. That's a big spike area. Now, we could talk about moving hand watering back to 7 p.m. if you like. I mean, we can make that adjustment for those who, from like 7 to 8, but I wouldn't recommend anything else than probably that.
And I'll motion to go ahead and adopt this, starting at 7 p.m.
And that would be just the hand water.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to clarify that. Only the hand watering is 7 to 12, 8 to 12 on the other sprinkler system.
Okay, do I need to stay on that again?
Nope, that's
Okay,
fine.
7 to 11 or 7 to 12?
No, 7 to 11.
7 to, what did you want, 7 to 11?
That's fine, 7 to 11.
7 to 11. Yes, 7 to 11, yes.
Councilwoman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Rudolph?
Yes.
Councilman Marcy?
Yes.
Councilman Huglen?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes. I know when I was a kid, you turn the water on to brush your teeth, and the water stayed on the whole time you brushed it. I mean, I've even got to where I killed, and I know that's not, sounds like not brain surgery, but for me, it's a physical thought process to turn that water off, brush your teeth, and then turn it back on. Thank you. Any other questions related to this?
No, we appreciate your consideration. We appreciate the community's support. You do our best best to try to get through these tough times. But I do feel like we are going in the right direction, and in this next few months, we'll hopefully have some clarification on some immediate supplement to Plum Lake, we hope.
The thing you said about the 1 year, let's do this and fix the problem, and then hopefully we'll learn some things about conservation while we're doing it. City manager's report for the Clinton City Council.
Council, basically, that's the main topic was water, and we appreciate your consideration to that tonight.
Any questions for the city manager from anyone on the council?
I'd just like to say thank you for all of the hard work you have been doing recently with the Public Works Director being gone and all the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's good job. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate the staff. We have a real good staff, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your support.
I feel like there's been a lot of extra hours with you and the staff, and we really appreciate that. And I just have a comment. We're going to have Teach America that will be here next Thursday, I believe, in the city of Clinton. I'm not sure how many teachers will be here, but I'll try and find out. And they're coming from all over the state, is my understanding, of Clinton.
I think we're talking about 10 to 20. So,
I'm not sure where they're doing lunch or anything yet, but I'll try and find out. I'll let staff know, so we're aware that they're in town.
sounds like a very interesting program. They take some of the top students, I guess you would say, in the teaching field. They hope they go into the teaching field and they end up other places. But it's Teach America, a very interesting program. Questions or comments from the audience? This is your opportunity of a general nature to ask any questions or voice any opinions related to anything in the city of Clinton.
How do we contact you guys? I've had trouble in the past.
Do you have access to the web?
Is that how everyone
That's
first
probably the
contacted?
best way for me, because I know if you send me an email, we have our IP guy, for lack of a better way, I'm sure that's not his title, but the man with the plan when it comes to computers. And Mr. McCullough, I know I get emails occasionally from people. He will forward them to me and ask where we want them to go as far as, and I know we all have that ability.
So that's the best way, okay, and we'll just call the main office to find
Yeah, if you have any questions as to how to get a hold of any one of the council members, I'm sure that you can talk to Steve and he can direct you to us.
Thank you, and one thing came up on Martin Luther King Day. I was downtown, and two elderly ladies were waiting for the parade, and they were wondering where it was, and I said I'd find out, and they didn't, and I tried calling City Hall, and no one knew about it, so it was kind of frustrating trying to get information.
I can address that one. Part of the reason is that is years ago when I grew up here in Clinton also, that used to be something that the Lincoln Edition community really took a part in and really pushed it and stuff. The last couple of years, I know the last 10 years, they've not really done that. The gentleman that used to really push that and be in charge of that, Thomas Redwine, is no longer living. So they did not have a parade this year. They do a little small thing at one of the churches, but nothing to the point of what they used to do. I understand there is a group between Clinton and Altus that is working to do something more this year, but also the city of Clinton did recognize Black History Month this year. We had some of our students from Eastside Academy, and also a gentleman, Roy Bell, who's Clinton, also came and did our prayer that day. So we did recognize Black History Month. We also, and I'm just speaking on behalf of what I know that happens, but we also do recognize Martin Luther King Day if we're asked to do something. Also, every 2 years when Excelsior School, which is our black school here, when they have the reunion, we recognize that reunion, and whatever we can do, we recognize. I'm not saying that because I'm African American I'm here, but I'm saying that because I've been a part of that even before I got on council.
That would be really great to start that up again. Thank you. And my last thing, sorry to take up so much time, is sidewalks. I think we need more sidewalks in town. People need to exercise, and I've got to walk downtown in the old sidewalks and smell bar-S, but people are obese, and we need to know our next door neighbors. It helps mental health, and I know it costs money, but it's just the old parts of town that have them, and people have to ride in the street. their bikes, and it's a safety hazard. So in the future for
It's
our
interesting.
mental health, human health, and physical health.
It's interesting you bring that up. A gentleman, L.R. Sites, sitting right behind you, has been a real proponent of sidewalks. We had, I will tell you, we had that on the agenda 3 years ago when the economic downturn came, and I would anticipate and encourage that that will continue to be something we will look at as we come out of. But it's also one of those things that it is expensive. It is highly expensive, and it is infrastructure that.
Grants, apply for grants, students could help, prison people could help,
That's.
volunteers, just ideas.
I understand, but we have talked about it. It is in the forefront of our minds. It's just a matter of, do you blacktop and redo streets, or do you put sidewalks in? Right now, the priority is streets. That we can add those other things to it. I would love to, and we've talked about trying to get the sidewalks out to Clinton Regional Hospital. I see people walking on Custer all the
Yeah.
time. So we're very familiar with that. It's something we've discussed. It's just a matter of funding, so
Expand more.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would also tell you from a standpoint of, we have tried not to get into the parades and the things. I mean, when the city runs things, then you're going to find somebody to do it. We've tried to work closely with some of the groups. I know there were some questions a year ago about Veterans Day, actually two Veterans Days ago. And we want to support anything people want to do. We're there, we'll close the streets, we'll do anything we can. But for the city to take the forefront and lead in some of those things, then you get to the point where it's just another thing that the city does. We'll support people when they want to do it in any way, shape, or form. So, any other questions or comments from anyone in the audience?
You may have covered this, and I didn't mean to take up your time, but will the plant at Clinton Lake process the water out of Falls Lake?
No, because of the hardness of the water.
What about the water out of the wells behind the lake? Is it any better?
Yes. It is better, and then there's where you run into the specifics, how much hard water is there, will it treat it? Some of the wells it will, some of the wells it might not.
Thank you much.
The surface water is phenomenally hard. Do you remember what it was, the hardness? I know it's hard.
It's over 800, I believe, but we can't process that.
And it's almost a dinosaur as far as the thought processes that went into there are limited numbers of plants that do that right now, 15, 20 left in the U.S., just because of the hardness of the water and the problem that it is.
I got one more comment, then I want to shut my mouth for tonight.
That's okay.
I commend you guys for the stand on the restaurants. I've been in restaurants so many times, and the waitress brings a glass of water to it, and it sits there and nobody drinks it. Think of how many gallons of water that saved today if that water wasn't delivered to that place. If they ask for it, sure, I think, I commend you guys for that.
We will continue, and any ideas, I mean, people are always welcome to come up with ideas, listen to anything. Any other questions or comments from the audience? It is a difficult time. We take no joy in this, but decisions have to be made, and appreciate the council for what they've done. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of the Clinton City Council.
Second.
Yes. Councilman Cuba?
Yes.
Councilman Rudolph? Councilman Marcy? And Mayor?
Yes.